Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. I want to dedicate the shir to my grandmother, Esther Bas Moshe Isaac. It's her yard site today. And maybe if we have time, we could say something about Shavas B'Tammuz. But anyway, we're going to go a little off topic today. It has to do with shomer because we discussed last week, when you have someone else's cash and you invest it, are you investing it for yourself? Are you investing it for him? Who benefits from the investment when you invest someone else's cash as a shomer? Someone else gave you cash and you invested it. Your theory was that in general, when it came to cash, the way you were trying to say was that I don't care if it's this dollar bill or that dollar bill, assuming that it's all part of the pile. We're going to see that svara comes into play very seriously in the halachas that we're learning now. Okay, now we may not even get to this shayla, I realize, because we have to do the matzah atzma chavera first. So, there's a few halachas I want to go through, and we're going to get to some really, really geshmak shaylas, okay? But,
You're talking about a person to person, not as a person who's a banker.
Kipshutai, person to person. It could be maybe it would be to get like an old fashioned day banker where like I basically took everyone's money, held it, and then gave it back to
These days, there's investment bankers. This is what they do as a business.
Yeah, that's obvious. Then you're much more just a shliach on his behalf. Here we're talking about your shliach to hold it. You're not really supposed to invest it. That's what we spoke about last week. Now we're going to speak about what happens if there's any collateral damage by you being a shomer. So there's going to be a few cases of that. Let's just take it for example. Let's take a simple example. Someone asks you to be a shomer on their money. They're not a U.S. citizen. They have cash. They want you to deposit into their account. Okay, so you keep it. We said last week that when you're a shomer on money, even though the Gemara says ain't shmira ella b'karka, but you don't have to do karka nowadays. You don't have to bury it in the hole in the ground somewhere. You could put it in a bank. Now, what happens if you put it in the bank, and since you put it into a bank, now for whatever reason you're considered in a different bracket or something like that, and you lose out on a certain tax benefit. So now you lost money because you were a shomer on this guy, right? So now what happens? Does he have to pay you for that? Is he chayiv for that, that collateral damage that he caused you for being a shomer? Right? Because now, the case that we're going to say is, what happens if you're holding this cash and it becomes clear to some people that you're holding the cash, and then because they know that, they come into your house looking for the cash. Some ganovim come in, they come in looking for the cash, they want to steal the cash, and on the way of stealing the cash, they also steal your silver or whatever. So it's really not so fair because the only reason why they came after you is because of the cash that you were washing for him, right? So let's look this up in Shulchan Aruch. These are cases that are brought it down in Shulchan Aruch itself.
You're holding cash, and they know you're holding cash, and you just lock your house down total.
Right. So now the question is, we learned last Zman that if a ganav comes over to you and threatens you, and you can kind of buy off the ganav. How are you going to buy off the ganav? You see someone else's item on the street, right? You have access to someone else's stuff. Are you allowed to give the other person stuff to save yourself? So we said you're allowed to, but you'll have to pay him back, because it's called matzah atzmei b'mammon chaveroi. You're not allowed to use someone else's stuff to save you and not pay him for it. You have to pay him. It's his stuff, right? So we said, let's say someone's running after you, and there's a crystal, and you throw it at him. So you use that to protect yourself. You got to pay him for that, vaz, because you were matzah atzma chaver. But here, what happens? They come to you at gunpoint, and they say, "Give me the cash," and you give the cash. Are you chayiv because matzah atzma mamon chaverei? Or here it's different because they were gufa coming for that cash, right? They were gufa coming for that. So let's see it inside.
Are you saying there's a difference between those two types of robbery?
Yeah. Because one robbery is they're coming after you unknowingly of anything, and you're using the other person's money to save yourself. I'm not saying you're not allowed to do it, but if you do it, you have to pay him back. The other case is that they're coming for his money. They're coming for his money. Since they're coming for his money, you're not mechuyev to let yourself get beaten up to protect his money.
It also depends on how I would think that how the robbers found out, because you were bragging and you were talking, or because the lender had mentioned it and that's how it was known.
Okay. I mean, I didn't see that distinction, but it could be. I hear what you're saying. Let's look at page 54. So, page 54, it says the following. Reish Tzadi Beis Seif Ches. Reish Tzadi Beis Seif Ches. Hamafkir Eitz L'chaver Momon Kelim Chashuvim. You give to someone to watch money, or Kelim Chashuvim. Uboa Lov Ganovim. And Ganovim came. V'kodam v'nosan lehem apikadin. And he says, "Oh, guy, he gets attacked, and he says, hey, I'll give you the watch. It's not his watch. He's watching it for some. He's a shomer for it for someone else. So they come to him, hold him up. He says, here, take the watch. Now, is he chayiv to pay back for the watch or not? He's a shomer on the watch, and he uses the watch to protect himself. So, zok the Shulchan Aruch. So we make the following distinction. If the shomer himself is considered a well-to-do guy, chayiv, then he's chayiv to pay back the watch. Why? Should be because we can assume, if he's himself a well-to-do guy, so we can assume that the ganovim held him up on his own schos. They didn't come after the watch. They came after him because he himself is a well-to-do guy. So they assume that, I don't know if you have a watch that you're a shomer from, you're borrowing from someone else, or you have your own stuff, but whatever it is, I want to get from you something. Oh, so they came to you because of you. Now you're using the other guy's watch to protect yourself. You can't do that. You got to pay him back. But if you don't, if you're just, you're not amud. What's amud like?
Wealthy.
You're not right. It's like we don't mishayir that you're a wealthy guy. We don't assume you're a wealthy guy. Then the assumption is they only came to you because the only thing that you have that's kedai is the thing that you're watching, and therefore they came gufa for the watch. Since they came gufa for the watch, if you're giving them the watch, that's fine. You're not mechuyev. Like we said last month, you're not mechuyev. You're not allowed to be matzel atzmei b'mamon chaveroi, but you're not mechuyev to be moiser nafshay l'mamon chaveroi either. So if the guy is coming for, you're not mechuyev to be matzel mamon chaveroi b'nafshay. So memela,
Coming for the watch, you give him the watch.
if he's coming for the watch, you give him the watch. If he's coming for you and you give him the watch, you're chayiv. If he's coming for the watch, then you give him the watch and you're off the hook. Okay, we had this actually before. A very similar idea, when we were talking about the halachas of a moiser. When we were talking about moiser, so we said it depends. If they're coming to you because they want your money, and then you're moiser someone else's money, that's a problem. But if they came to you because they know about the other guy's money, that could be different. They're coming to you for his money. It's a different halacha. Okay, so this is another case of shomer, very important to know. The case of a shomer chinam who's pater and gneva v'aveda, even though he's pater and gneva v'aveda, he's not allowed to use the item that he's watching to protect himself. Which I could hear that being a shcheichtika case. Right? You borrow someone's car, well then you're a shomer sachar probably, or even a shoyel, so it's totally different. But that would be an interesting case, right? You're borrowing someone's car, and then they come and steal the car. I guess you're chayiv, you're a shoyel, but I think there's cases about that. If they came because they thought it was his or whatever.
in all these cases, if a guy normally isn't wealthy, now he's acting, he's wearing nice suits, so you figure the guy's something already, either something he changed the status and that's going after him.
Right. So they're going after the guy himself.
Not the car, just
Right.
the guy.
Yeah.
The guy's wearing a fancy watch and a fancy suit, and last week he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, so you figure either he did a deal or he became employed for this
Right.
guy.
Either way, he's a guy that's worthwhile,
Going after.
approaching. Okay, so that's this halacha. Very nice chiluk. Whether they're coming after the guy, l'shem the guy, or they're coming after the money that he's watching, in which case he's potter if he gives it over. Okay? Now, the next case, great case. The next few halachas are gevaldik. Halacha tes. Next case. Hufgad etzloi momin shal pidyon shvuyim. He is now being shomer on behalf of the community. He's not being shomer for an individual. He's being shomer on behalf of the community, momin, money that was raised for pidyon shvuyim. What's pidyon shvuyim? Pidyon shvuyim means you have someone that's held hostage by goyim, and they want a ransom, and the community got together to collect the money for the ransom. And this guy is the shomer on that money. Now this guy is held up at gunpoint. The goyim found out, different goyim, but they found out that this guy is the one holding all the money that was just raised, all the cash. So if he's the one that's holding all the cash, so now they hold him up. And he gave the money that was just raised to save himself from being beaten up by these goyim. Is he permitted to do that or not? So now, im loy haya matzoi etzloi sham momin acher lifteis atzmoi boy potter. Now, the first things first. We have to first figure out how does this fit with the previous case. Did they come after the cash of the pidyon shvuya money, or did they come after him because he's anyway a well-to-do guy? So if they came after the pidyon shvuya money, there's nothing to talk about. It's not his fault. They came after that money, so he's allowed to give them that money. He's not mechuyev to get beaten up and killed because he's holding the community's money. So they came after the community's money. He's allowed to give it to them, and that's fine. He's off the hook. But what happens if he's himself a well-to-do guy, and they didn't come after that money? They came after him because of him. And they say, we need 100 grand cash now, or else. And now he actually has money he could get, but he doesn't have cash right now. As we discussed, getting cash is not so simple these days, right? So he doesn't have the cash now. So the only cash that he has to protect himself is the cash that he's holding for the pidyon shvuya money. But they didn't really come after that pidyon shvuya money. They came after him. This is the way the Shach and Tosfos learns this halacha. We weren't sure, but then we saw the Tosfos. This is how Tosfos learns the halacha, right? So in the previous case, we learned that if they came after him and he used the money to protect himself, he's on the hook for that money. He's got to pay. So what about over here? So Zok the Shulchan Aruch Potter. He doesn't have to pay in this case. So very weird. In the previous case, we said he has to pay, but all of a sudden here, I would think it's worse. It's communal funds. You hear the case?
Yeah.
Well, Zok der, Zok the Shulchan Aruch Svara. She'ein lecha pidyon shvuyim gadol mizeh. V'davka shayimam shel pidyon shvuyim stam aval ma'ay shel pidyon shvuyim yedu m'chayiv. So he says it depends. It depends what the money was collected for. There's two ways in the olden days, or even nowadays actually, there's two ways to collect pidyon shvuyim money. Or any tzedakah is like that. Let's take a case of a hachnasas kala. We actually had such a case like that. It was a crazy case. There was a guy, in general, I'm going to go off topic now because it's interesting. If you collect money for a hachnasas kala, there's a kala, she gets married, she gets engaged, oh, we have to marry her off, the community gets involved, and we raise, whatever, we raise $50,000 to make this kala's chasana. Amazing. L'maisa, the engagement gets broken off. What do you do with the money? So do you offer back to people, or do you say it was collected for Achlasas Kala, so I'll hold on to it for the next Kala?
Hold on to it for the next one.
It depends what you collected it for.
So it depends. If you were very, very specific, and you said, this is the name of the Kala, this is who she is, this is her story, this is what it's for, then it was collected for her, and there's no more Kala, then you give it back. If you say, listen, there's a big Achnasas Kala need in the community, we don't have Achnasas Kala fund, I'm collecting for a specific Kala, but the point is that we're really connecting for Achnasas Kala so we can help the Kalas in the community, then you keep it in the fund. We had a Maisa Shahaya, unbelievable Maisa Shahaya. A guy comes over to me, it was about a week before, within 2-3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and he says that he had a very interesting story. That he was at a wedding, and it was a wedding of a little bit of a messy family situation. He's at this chasana, and then he sees there's no food. There's literally no food. So, not sure what's going on. He goes into the caterer. He goes into the kitchen. It's like, "Are you guys? Do you need help? You need some waiters? Like, what's going on? There's no food." They're like, we weren't paid. We weren't paid, and we're not bringing out the food. So he chapped at this guy that neither side has money. And right away he sent out a few texts to his things. They raised, I think it was $17,000 for the caterer, and they said he charged his credit card, and he raised the money, and no, he didn't charge the credit card. He told the caterer, it's on me. The caterer knew this guy's a ball, but this guy is good for his word. So the caterer says, fine, you bring out the food. So this guy felt all good about himself. He raised all the money. He literally, within those minutes, already got everything. Everyone zelled him the money. Everyone gave him the money. And he said, invoice me. So he realized now, it's like right before Sean, he's making his cheshbonis, and he's like, I never paid this caterer. So he calls up the caterer, and he says, you never invoiced me. I have the money for that wedding. Oh, no, don't worry about it. A week after the wedding, they paid me. She's like, I have all this money now, what do I do? Right?
Somebody else paid it.
The people, the Bali Simcha paid.
But he raised money.
He raised money on the spot for it, but in the end, the Bali Simcha paid for it.
All right, so does it go to them?
So
or
now,
in general?
so I said, how specific were you? He said, that was kind of specific, but it was also more or less general. I was like, there's a Kala needs some money. I wasn't like, if you don't send now, no food's coming out of the wedding. I was just like more general. It's urgent, there's a need for a Kala. I think we could, he felt like he was being more general enough. So I said that, okay, it's unbelievable, mitzvah that you did, and I think that you should use it to pay for the caterer of a cow. Literally within a day or so, I don't remember which order it was. Maybe it was the other way around. Bottom line is, another family came over to me that there was no way they were going to make this chasana, that their daughter just got engaged. There was no way they were able to make the chasana. I arranged for it right away. This guy made a check to this girl's caterer for this girl's chasana, $17,000 paid for, and the whole chasana was paid for. So he raised money for a different kala in the end. But the point is that if Ramosh has a tshuva about this, that if money is raised for a more general need, you're allowed to use the money for that need, even if it's not for that specific person. Okay? So you could give the money to Achnasas Kala, as long as it's for Achnasas Kala. So now, this money that this guy is walking around, the Pidyon Shvuyim money that this guy is holding on to, says the Shulchan Aruch, it depends what that Pidyon Shvuyim money was raised for. If the Pidyon Shvuyim money was raised for a specific guy, then since the Ganovim came to him on his own and he used this money to save himself, he's got to pay it back to the community. Okay? But then it's possible that the Pidyon Shvuyim money was raised as general Pidyon Shvuyim fund, a general Pidyon Shvuyim fund, to help people that are being held up in hostage situations by Goyim. That's what this money was for. Now he is going, and he's the shliach of the community, he's holding the money. They come to him on the way, the goyim, different goyim, they come to him and hold him up at gunpoint because he's a wealthy guy. he uses this money to protect himself. Says the Shulchan Aruch, he's allowed to. You know why? Because he's also a shavui. He himself is a shavui. Because, like the Gemara says by a Boigeres, that if the simanim is moitzi her from Avdus, Kal v'chomer, you can't sell yourself in the first place to Avdus, right? So this guy raised money for Pidyon Shvuyim. Now, because he's holding the money, or not even because, he's holding the money, and they want to put him up at gunpoint, and they want to threaten him, either beat him or threaten him. The only way he can get out of it is by using this money. That itself is Pidyon Shvuyim. Since that itself is Pidyon Shvuyim, he's allowed to use the Pidyon Shvuyim money to protect himself, and he's off the hook. So the nafkamina would be, what if he was holding Achnasas Kala money? So Shaykh to Pidyon Shvuyim. So if he was holding Achnasas Kala money, and then they hold him up at gunpoint, it would depend. If they're holding him at gunpoint for that money, he's allowed to give it. If they're holding him at gunpoint for his own money, and he chooses to give this money, then he's on the hook, he has to pay for it.
So you can't use the heter also as shavui.
He can't use the heter as also a shavui. And he's not a kala, so he has to pay for
He
it.
replenishes the fund.
So the
He has to repay.
The lesson is if you're going to hold money for free, it should be shavui money.
Right. Getting people out of tax problems, money.
You can't switch it to a more pressing need. Aren't you allowed in Gemara Megillah? Can't you switch the money to a more pressing need?
Pidyon Shvuyim money is considered the most pressing.
Right. So even if you connect it for Achnasas Kala, if there was a Pidyon Shvuyim coming in, he'd be allowed to use the money for Pidyon Shvuyim.
I hear what you're saying. Could be you're right.
He'd be allowed to use it for his own.
Okay, you're right. You're allowed to switch Achnasas Kala money for Pidyon Shvuyim. Could be right. I don't know the details of that, but yeah, could be right. If you're allowed to switch Achnasas Kala money for Pidyon Shvuyim, then you could. You could even sell Sefer Torah for Pidyon Shvuyim. So. Okay, so that's but you see from here, by the way, that's also Pidyon Shvuyim. You're held up at gunpoint. You don't know what's going to be with you. So protecting someone in that situation is mamash mitzvah Pidyon Shvuyim.
The opposite of Chassid's money is to create a Chevy. Pidyon Shvuyim is to get a Chevy out.
Yeah. Okay. That is the halacha test. Okay. So basically, halacha ches and halacha tes describe the situation of somebody that's holding money and there's some sort of collateral damage based on that he's holding the money. They're coming to him, and now it depends. If it's because he's holding the money, it's one thing. If it's not because he's holding the money, it's on his own, then it would be a different halacha. Okay, halacha yud, very important halacha. Okay. The case of the Shulchan Aruch is it's shtickle specific, but the yisoid is very, very important. So it says like this: Hamafkid peiros eitzel chaveroi, harezel lo ya'arvem in peirosav. Someone gave you something to watch, and it's not a very specific thing. It's fruit. It's fruit. Now, applying it to our case, let's say it's cash. So you've been wondering this the whole time. It's cash. I don't really care at the end which dollar bills you give back to me. I don't want you to spend them and borrow them. But I don't mind if you switch them out, right? So in other words, I don't want you to go, I gave you $1,000 cash. I don't want this to be your last $1,000 that you're spending and you're borrowing money from me. But I don't care if you have other $1,000 of cash lying around. I don't care if it's this one or that one. The point is, and whenever I come back, there should be $1,000 of cash waiting for me. So the halacha really is that when I give you fruit to watch, the thing with fruits, especially in those days, is that there was assumed to be a certain amount of chisaron, a certain amount of depreciation in the fruit. A certain amount is going to spoil, a certain amount is not going to make it through the season. So therefore, it's much better if you keep your stuff separate from my stuff. Because maybe your stuff is of different quality than my stuff, maybe my stuff is of different quality than your stuff, maybe your stuff is going to spoil at a different rate than my stuff. And therefore, the best case scenario is you give me fruit, I keep it in your corner, and I give you back whatever's left. And if it was a 10% depreciation, let it be 10%. If it was 15%, it'll be 50%. Whatever happened, take it back. But what happens if you mixed it up with mine? Now we don't know what happened. Then what you assume is a certain depreciation happened, and you split it up, and you prorate it according to the ratio. So if I had 500 pounds, and you gave me 500 pounds, it's 1,000 pounds, and now there's 900 pounds left, so there was a 10% depreciation. So we both lose 10%. You take back 450, I take back 450. It could have been what happened. Really, all of it came from yours, but it doesn't matter. Once we mixed it together, we just go by the ratio. Okay? Hareza lo ya'arvim min peirosav. Avar ve'irev yachshav kama haya pikadon ve'yireh kama chaser hakol v'yachshav v'chisaron pikadon v'itin lo achash yishba. You make a shvua, and you go according to the percentage. And in Suf Yud Aleph and Yud Beis basically just goes on continuing in those halachas. Okay? Now,
you're not considered a mazik the fact that you ma'arif them.
Right. It says lo ya'arvim, you're not supposed to.
Not
But if you
it's
do,
not shayah if you do it.
it's not pshia to do it. That's the point. Right. Okay? But it's not smart for you, because this way, if really his was less quality than yours, you're losing now by ma'arvim.
Lo ya'arif is, I'm still doing something that I'm not supposed to do as a shomer, and I'm not getting charged with it.
Right. Okay. Now, that's very good when it comes to fruit. What about money? What about money? So, you have a safe. In the safe, you keep cash. So you have $9,000 cash in your safe. I give you $1,000 cash to watch. Now, we put that money in the safe. And we weren't specific about which dollar bills. I don't really care which dollar bills. You don't really care which dollar bills. So now at the end, what happens is since nobody cares about the dollar bills, so we have $1,000 cash in the safe, and we assume 90% of the cash belongs to the owner, 10% belongs to the mafkid, 10% belongs to the guy who gave. Now a ganav comes in. Remember, Shemachin was patur on Geneva Vaveda, and let's say he wasn't Pesheya, because putting in the safe is considered good shmira. Let's say, so a ganav comes in, and he steals. To make it easy, what? And he steals $100 from the safe. Now, let me make it easier. He steals $1,000 from the safe. So now, what would the olam say? Again, the shomer has $900,000 in the safe. The mafkid gave him $1,000 to give to watch, and he put it and mixed it up in his safe. So now the safe has $10,000 cash in there. A ganav comes and steals $1,000 from the safe. So what would be the halacha? I would say that there's maybe three ways that you could split this up. One is maybe you split the loss. I mean, that's so logical, but you split the loss 50-50. I don't know why. Okay. Or you go by the ratio. So the owner would lose 900, and the shomer and the mafkid would lose 100 because he has 10%. Or there's a third option. Third option is as follows. There's a klal called ein holchem b'mammon achar haroiv. There's a rule that you don't go by mammon with a roiv. So if I want to be moitzi mammon from you, if I want you to pay me based on rov is not strong enough to be moitzi mammon from a chazaka. Okay? So the Gemara gives many, many examples, but that's the rule. The rule is you can't be moitzi mammon. So let's say, we spoke about this before, let's say you sell me something, and it's not clear if there's a problem with it. It's only according to the rov there's a problem. I can't get back my money from you based on rov. I got to hamotzi mechaver of a raya. If you want to take money out of your shus, you need a raya, and a rov is not a raya. So could one argue that the owner is the mochzak? It's my money. You have to prove to me that $900 of that was stolen was my $900. Maybe it was really your $900, and therefore maybe based on ein holchem b'mammon achar harov, you would say that all 1,000 the loss of all 1,000 goes to the mafkid, and he loses all 1,000 because he can't prove that part of it.
That would be
right. Since the muchzak is the shomer. Because right, and the mafkid wants to prove that $900 of it came out from his pocket, so maybe he can't get any money back. And all 1,000, we assume the shomer kataina that all 1,000 that were stolen were your 1,000. So that's the chiddush of this halacha. That you don't say that. You don't say that. I got it. When you mixed up all the money, then we say that whatever happened equally according to the ratio. Okay, that's the chiddush of this halacha. That even though but that's only when there's a muchzak. But here, where it's mixed up together, it's not like that. Okay. Now, what we're going to talk about next week, it's Hashem. I don't want to get into it now because it's very complicated and it's a geshmak shaila. So, here's the shaila. It's an amazing shaila. There's about 4 or 5 ways you could split up the shaila. And I'm assuming that nobody is going to actually figure out the way we're going to come out from the Nesivos based on this. I asked my kids, Aaron and Chaim, I asked my kids this riddle to try to figure it out. And they came close, but they couldn't get it. They couldn't get the var, get the lumdus over here. Okay, the case is as follows. This whole thing applies when I give you cash and you mixed it in with your cash and it's one big pile of cash that basically we assume 90% goes here and 10% belongs here. But what if it's not cash? What if it's coins, bricks of gold? We don't really mix them together. And each item is separate. So even if they're similar, but each one is separate. So we don't assume that let's say the case was a Rolex. So the guy has in his safe nine expensive watches, and I give him one expensive watch. We don't assume, now it's a pile of 10 watches, and they all got mixed together, and now we're shutvim in the watches. No, each one stands alone. And there the halacha will be, if one watch got stolen, the shomer could tell the owner, it's your watch that got stolen. Because it's not considered one mixture. We don't go by Rov.
Each one is unique.
Each one is a unique thing. So you have to prove to me that it was my watch that got stolen. So the shomer could say, I'm the mochzak. And since I'm the mochzak, so your watch got stolen.
People are generally
Now,
not good on the one they started with.
Right.
You have 2 briefcases.
Right.
Identical briefcases, nothing inside. So each person is marked, but he wants to take his.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. When it's an individual item, you don't consider it to be a taroivis of all the stuff. You consider it to be each individual item. And even though one got stolen, so logically, statistically, you would think, if one got stolen, we should assume it got stolen from the 9, not from the 1. I should assume the one of the 9 got stolen, not the one that I gave got stolen. But you don't go by Roiv, and therefore you say that the one that got stolen was from the mafkid, and the shomer could say, yours got stolen, I don't have to pay you. But what happens if there's no mochzak? So here's the case. The case was, you want to take watches, we'll take watches. So it's not that there was a shomer. There's a third guy, he's going from Miami to whatever. He's going from Miami to New York, and he's going to sell these watches. And Reuven gave, the guy that's going, his name is Levi. Reuven gave Levi 10 watches. Shimon gave Levi 5 watches. 15 watches. On the way, he's a shomer chinam, he signs all the papers. I'm not a shomer sachar, I'm a shomer chinam, I'm patan gneva v'aveda. On the way, 9 watches get lost. 9 watches get lost.
And you don't know which one is which.
We don't know which watches get lost, and there's no muchzak because there's no chazaka here because it's a third party holding it, so there's no muchzak. So you could either say 50-50, you could say holchem mamanachar arayv, you could say ratio. So ratio would be 6 and 3. 2/3, 1/3. Holchem mamanachar arayv would be. Holchem mamanachar arayv would say that all nine came from the guy who gave the 10, because he's the roiv. So since he's the roiv, maybe you would say all 9 came from him.
That's only if one was missing, you would go basarayv. If 9 are missing, you can't go basarayv anymore.
But
Because the
How you
because
stole the
some of them are
7th is no longer right.
So like this. So Kipshutai, there should be two options. If you go by Roiv, so you should say that all 9 came from the guy who gave the 10. And therefore, he lost all 9, because all 9 came from him. And Mamela, he loses all 9, and the guy with the 5 takes his 5 home. Or you could say you go by ratio, which would be 6 and 3. Right? But we already said, why should you go by, you don't go by ratio in this type of case, because there's no pile that they're shutzvim in.
Well, here there might be more of a pile, because the shlish doesn't make a difference.
No, but they're still makbid on their things. So there's no, it's not considered that we're making a pile of 9. And Adrabah, I'm not interested in that you're carrying the stuff for someone else. I don't want to mix my stuff. I mean, you're telling me I'm going to put it in one suitcase, but at the end of the day, I want my 6. I don't care about his 3.
Well, if you have no way, if once they go into the safe and there's no identifying purposes, they all look exactly the same. And so there's no way when he pulls
Okay,
out
but I'm still makbid on my 6.
But you're not going to, once it goes into the box, it's no longer.
But we said that. We said that once there's a guy's technically makbid, I have my simanim. No, Lamaisa, you took off the simanim, and I have no way of figuring it out. But Lamaisa, I'm makbid on my 6. So the Nesivus says that you don't say that he lost all 9, and you don't say 6 and 3. So what do you say? It's a great part. So he said the first 5, you assume. The first 5 you assume came from the guy that had 10, because he's the roiv. So therefore, if one gets lost, who lost it?
10.
This is the way I ask my kid. One gets lost, who lost it? Oh, the one with the 10. It's more logical. There's no muchzak here, so you go with the 10. 2 got lost. Where do you assume the 2 came from? The guy with the 10. 3 got lost. Who do you think it came from? The guy with the 10. 4 got lost. Who do you think he lost? The guy from the 10. 5 got lost. Who do you think it came from? The guy with the 10. Okay. But now, a 6th one gets lost. Hold on. So I'm saying, so at the 6th one gets lost. So now why should I assume the 6th one came from the guy with the 10? Now they both have 5 left. After the first 5 got lost, they're equal. So Zak the Nesivus, anything after 5 they split. So therefore the halacha would be the first 5, the guy with the 10 loses. The next 4 they split. So it's not 6 and 3 or 9 and 1, it's 7 and 2. It's the halacha. That the one that had 10, we assume 7 he lost, and 2 came from the guy with the 5.
Even if it was one mice of picking up 9 at the same time?
That's the Nesivus' din. What?
Even if he picked up all 9 at the same time?
Well, you can't say he picked them up, because then it's called kavua kamekta mechtzadami. It's very complicated. You have to say that the guy lost them. It came out of the roiv. It's called the parish. Otherwise, it's called kavua. It's very complex. But al kapanim, this is the case. This is the Nesivus' chap. So I challenge you to bring this up as a riddle at your Shabbos Suda. Your kids will become good lamdanim if you test them on this. Okay, so that's what we're saying. Well, that's what we're saying. So it has to be called a parish, and once it's called, okay. So
why is that the logic? It sounds like
no, it's not necessarily logic, but why? But what's the?
Proportional seems to be much fair to be exactly proportional.
No. Okay, so we because he has a taina. You have to prove to me that I was the one that got lost. We only say proportional when it's a tarubis, when it's considered one item, and we're partners, and the partnership is according to our ratio in the partnership. But once we're not partners anymore, then you don't say it doesn't go proportional anymore. That's the difference between the two cases. If it's cash and we put it into one pot, then it's proportional. But if it's not cash, then we don't consider it to be proportional.
So what's that formula based on? The one that you just said?
We'll go into it again next week. We'll go into next week. But if you can figure out this formula, you're guaranteed to be a good London. Okay.